You don't belong here, Dad. Christmas is for family. Real family. Those were my son's words, spoken sharp as an icicle, right on my own front porch. The snow was falling in thick sheets that night in Rockford, Illinois, and the cold. Air bit through my jacket, but nothing stung worse than hearing my boy, Michael, slam the door on me while my grandkids' voices carried from inside, singing carols I wasn't welcome to join. I stood there in the glow of the porch light, clutching the small box of gifts I'd wrapped myself, 2 toy trucks, a doll, and a knitted scarf Linda had made before she passed. My wife had always been the heart of Christmas in our home, and now even her memory wasn't welcome. Michael's wife, Karen, had been the one pushing him. I saw it in her eyes. She never liked me, never liked the way I reminded her that money doesn't make a family strong. Love does. But she had her claws in him, whispering poison. And now, here I was, a father locked out of his own home, left standing, in the snow like some stranger. I walked back to my truck that night, engine coughing against the cold. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight they went numb. You give your life to raising a child. You work double shifts at the factory. You patch the roof yourself. You take on loans you can barely carry, because you want them to have it better than you did. And then, one day, that same child looks at you like you're nothing more than a burden. Before I continue, if you're new here, please like, comment, and subscribe. And tell us where you're watching from. Let me back up a little. My name's Frank Miller, 62 years old, retired from the Rockford Foundry after 37 years on the line. I worked with my hands, built up calluses thicker than leather, and came home smelling of steel dust and sweat. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. Linda, my late wife, used to say I was the hardest working man she knew. She was the reason I kept going, even when my back gave out and my lungs burned from the years of smoke. She passed away 5 winters ago, and Christmas hasn't felt the same since. Michael was supposed to keep that spirit alive. Instead, he changed. Got himself a big job at a finance firm in Chicago. Suddenly, his father, the factory man, wasn't good enough to be part of his new life. He married Karen. Sharp suit, sharper tongue, and the distance between us only grew wider. Still, I paid the mortgage on this house long after I should have downsized. When Michael and Karen hit a rough patch with their own place, I co-signed the loan on theirs. I thought I was helping, keeping the family close, giving my grandkids a safe place to grow up. But sometimes, generosity turns into a weapon when the wrong hands are holding it. That Christmas Eve, sitting alone in my truck, I thought about all the years I'd poured into this family, all the sacrifices, all the paychecks handed over without a second thought. And for what? To be told I wasn't real family? I didn't drive home right away. Instead, I parked down by the river, the windows fogging as I stared at the frozen water. I thought of Linda's voice, warm and steady. Frank, don't let them trample on your heart. You're worth more than they'll ever know. And that's when something inside me shifted. Michael thought I was powerless. Karen thought she'd cut me out for good. But they'd both forgotten one thing. The house they were living in. The roof over their heads. The very mortgage they bragged about paying off every month. It was still in my name. Every brick, every board, every payment had my signature on it. And if they wanted to treat me like an outsider, maybe it was time I reminded them just how inside I really was. Snow kept falling that night, burying Rockford in silence. But inside my chest, the storm was just getting started. They wanted me gone for Christmas. Fine. But come New Year's, they'd learn what it really meant to shut a man out. The day after Christmas, I walked into Miller's Diner, a little greasy, spoon off State Street where I'd been eating eggs and bacon since the '80s. I'd barely sat down at the counter when old Pete, the cook, raised an eyebrow. "Frank," he said, pouring me coffee. "Heard you weren't at your son's place last night. Everything all right?" I forced a smile, but my gut twisted. News travels fast in Rockford, faster than winter winds. Folks probably thought I'd chosen to spend Christmas alone, but the truth was uglier than that. "Yeah," I muttered, staring into my coffee. "Everything's just fine." But Pete didn't buy it. No one did. I felt the whispers trailing me the whole morning. At the hardware store, at the gas station, neighbors nodding politely, their eyes filled with pity. And pity cuts deeper than any insult. That evening, Michael called. His voice was casual, almost smug. "Dad, listen. About Christmas. Karen thinks it's better if we start doing holidays our way. You understand, right? We're building our own traditions now." I gripped the receiver so hard it squeaked. "Your mother's scarf was in that box, Michael. Did you even give it to the kids?" A pause. Then his voice hardened. Karen thought it was outdated. We donated it. I closed my eyes, my heart pounding. Linda's scarf, every stitch made by her hands, gone. Tossed aside like trash. "You had no right," I whispered. "You don't get to tell me what's right anymore," he snapped. "You should be grateful we let you stay in that house as long as we have." The line went dead. I sat in the silence, his words ringing in my ears. "We let you stay." As if the house he lived in wasn't still, under my name. As if the payments hadn't come from my sweat, my overtime, my busted knuckles at the foundry. The next morning, I drove past their place, a 2-story colonial in a newer subdivision. Fresh paint, trimmed hedges, wreath on the door, the kind of house Karen liked to show off at PTA meetings. But I knew something they didn't want anyone else to know. Their finances weren't as shiny as the siding on that house. Michael's job had perks, sure, but he'd stretched himself thin. New cars, private school tuition, vacations to Florida. Without me co-signing that mortgage, the bank wouldn't have touched them with a 10-foot pole. And every month, when that automatic payment went through, it wasn't just his name on the account. It was mine. 2 nights later, I got another call. This time, it was Karen. "Frank," she said sweetly, though her voice carried that edge I'd come to know too well. "We're having a New Year's Eve dinner at the house. Close friends, colleagues. It's probably best if you don't come. We wouldn't want things to be uncomfortable." I bit back my anger. "I'm still family, Karen." A pause, then a cold laugh. "Family isn't just blood. It's who you choose. And frankly, you don't fit the picture anymore." The line went dead again. That night, I couldn't sleep. The wind howled against the windows, rattling the old frames. I sat in my recliner, staring at the mortgage papers I'd pulled from my filing cabinet. My name, in black ink, stared back at me. They thought they'd erased me from their lives. They thought they'd shut me out for good. But every brick of their perfect little house said otherwise. I ran my thumb over the account number, the bank's logo. All it would take was one call, one request, and their new traditions, their fancy dinners, their smug little smiles, would come crashing down. On December 30th, I stopped by the bank. The place smelled of polished wood and carpet cleaner. Behind the counter, Mary, who'd known me for 20 years, greeted me with a smile. "What can I do for you, Frank?" I slid the paperwork across the counter. "I need to talk about the Miller mortgage, the one with my name on it." Her smile faltered. "Of course. Do you want to discuss refinancing?" I leaned in, my voice low. "No, I want to discuss termination." Her eyes widened. "Frank, that would—" I know exactly what it would do. For a moment, the only sound was the tick of the lobby clock. Then Mary nodded slowly. "Let's step into my office." As I followed her past the desks and cubicles, a strange calm settled over me. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was deciding, and once the papers were signed, Michael and Karen's perfect world would start to unravel. The office door clicked shut behind me, muting the hum of phones and chatter from the bank lobby. Mary motioned for me to sit, her hands folded on the desk like she was about to deliver bad news. "Frank," she said gently, "if you terminate your co-signature, your son and daughter-in-law will have 30 days to refinance. If they can't, the bank will foreclose. Are you sure you want to go through with this?" I studied the papers between us. Michael's name, Karen's name, and mine, the only thing holding it all together. "I didn't raise my boy to treat people like disposable garbage," I said quietly. "He needs to learn what happens when you forget where you came from." Mary hesitated, then slid the termination forms across the desk. "All right, it's your right." I picked up the pen. For a moment, Linda's face flashed in my mind. Her warm smile, the way she'd hold my hand after a long shift. She wouldn't have wanted this ugliness, but she also wouldn't have wanted me disrespected, cast aside like yesterday's news. The pen scratched against the paper. When I set it down, the deed was done. That night, Michael called again. His tone was sharp, impatient. "Dad?" I heard, from the bank. "What the hell did you do?" I let the silence hang a beat before answering. "I just took my name off something that should have been yours all along. Figured since you said you didn't owe me anything, I'd stop acting like—" "You did! You can't do that!" he barked. "Karen and we've got payments scheduled, plans. You should have thought about that before you tossed your mother's memory in a donation bin," I cut in. My voice shook, not with fear, but with anger that had been festering too. "Long," he cursed under his breath. "Do you realize what you've done? You've ruined us." "No, Michael," I said softly. "You ruined yourself." He slammed the phone down so hard I could almost feel the vibration through the line. By New Year's Eve, the whole town was buzzing. Small towns feed on gossip like wolves on a carcass, and mine was already on the menu. At Miller's Diner, I overheard two women whispering in the next booth. "Did you hear? The Millers might lose their house. Can you imagine? With Karen parading around like queen of the block. About time someone knocked them down a peg." I sipped my coffee, pretending not to listen, but a part of me savored every word. That evening, as fireworks cracked in the distance and families gathered to ring in the new year, I sat alone in my living room. The house creaked in the cold, the old furnace humming steady. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt in control. On January 3rd, I met with a lawyer named Robert Klein, an old fishing buddy who still practiced downtown. His office smelled of leather and old books, the kind of place where serious conversations lingered in the walls. He listened carefully as I explained the situation. "So you've pulled your name from the mortgage?" he asked, adjusting his glasses. "Done and signed," I confirmed. He nodded. "Well, unless they can refinance without your credit backing them, foreclosure proceedings will start within the month. You're within your rights." I leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Good. I don't want to take their home, Robert." I just want them to know they can't treat people like dirt without consequences." Robert gave me a long look. "Sometimes, Frank, losing comfort is the only way folks learn humility." A week later, Michael showed up at my house. His expensive SUV crunched against the snow in my driveway, headlights cutting across the frosted glass. He didn't even knock, just barged in, his cheeks red from the cold and anger. "You're destroying my life," he shouted. "Do you have any idea what this looks like? People are talking, Dad. Karen's humiliated." I stood slowly, meeting his glare. "You humiliated yourself when you shut me out. You think respect is optional, son? It isn't. It's earned. You don't get it," he spat. "This isn't just about us. It's about appearances. Karen's father is threatening to cut us off because of this. We're hanging by a thread." His words didn't sting. They satisfied. Every excuse, every complaint, was proof that the mighty Miller household wasn't built on love or gratitude, but on pride and debt. I looked him dead in the eye. "Then maybe it's time the thread broke." Michael's fists clenched, his voice trembling with rage. "If you go through with this, you'll regret it. You'll lose me forever." I didn't blink. "Son, I lost you the moment you told me I wasn't family anymore." He stormed out, the door slamming so hard the windows rattled. His SUV tore down the icy road, leaving nothing but tire marks in the snow. And me? I sat back down, heart heavy but steady. The countdown had begun. Their empire was cracking, and soon the whole town would watch it collapse. The courthouse in Rockford isn't anything fancy, just a squat, brick building with a clock tower that hasn't worked right since the 90s. But that January morning, it might as well have been a coliseum. Word had spread fast. Folks who had no business being there showed up just to see the spectacle. Neighbors, old co-workers, even the pastor from St. Mark's. They all wanted to watch the Millers, Rockford's golden couple, face the music. I sat in the back row, coat buttoned up, hands steady on my knees. Across the aisle, Michael and Karen were huddled together, whispering furiously. Karen looked pale, her perfect hair pinned tight, but her lips trembled with anger. Michael kept glancing at me like I'd betrayed him, not the other way around. The judge cleared his throat. "We're here regarding foreclosure proceedings on the Miller property. Case number." His voice droned, but the weight of it pressed on everyone in the room. Their lawyer stood, trying to put on a brave face. "Your Honor, my clients request a 30-day extension to refinance. This is a temporary setback, nothing more." The T.E. Judge looked down at the paperwork. "Without Mr. Frank Miller's signature backing this mortgage, the bank is unwilling to extend credit. Unless alternative financing can be provided, foreclosure remains imminent." Gasps rippled through the benches. I heard whispers. He pulled his name? After all those years? Guess the old man had enough. Michael shot to his feet, his voice cracking. "Dad, tell him. Tell the court you'll sign it again. Don't do this to me." Every eye turned toward me. My heart thudded, but I kept my voice calm. "Michael, you told me I wasn't family anymore. You told me I should be grateful just to have a place at your table. I believed you, and so I'm acting like I'm not family, just a man looking out for his own dignity." Karen sneered, her voice dripping with venom. "You're pathetic, Frank. Bitter and old. You'll die alone in that shack of yours while we rebuild." For the first time in years, I felt my lips curve into a genuine smile. "Then I suppose you'll rebuild without the house you're sitting in." The room erupted in whispers and low laughter. Even the judge's gavel couldn't silence the buzz of gossip. Outside the courthouse, the cold air bit sharp against my cheeks. Reporters from the local paper were already snapping pictures, neighbors clustered in little knots, murmuring. Michael rushed after me, grabbing my arm. "Dad, please! I was wrong, okay? Karen was wrong. Just give us another chance. We'll make it right." For a split second, I almost saw the boy he used to be, running through the yard with a scraped knee, begging me not to tell his mother. But that boy was gone, replaced by a man who only remembered me when his comfort was on the line. "You had your chance," I said quietly, pulling free. "And you threw it away." Karen came storming up behind him, face red with fury. "You'll regret this, old man. We'll find another way. And when we do, you'll never see your grandchildren again." Her words hit like a knife, but I stood tall. "If keeping them means bending my neck to you, then maybe they're better off seeing who their parents really are," she gasped, stunned that I dared say it in front of the crowd gathering on the courthouse steps. Michael tried to hush her, but it was too late. The damage was done. The townsfolk had heard every word. By the time I got home, my phone was ringing, off the hook. Old friends, neighbors, even my boss from the foundry called to say they'd seen what happened. Most of them said the same thing. About time, Frank. About damn time. I sat in my recliner, the quiet hum of the furnace filling the room. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe again. But I knew the fight wasn't finished. Karen wasn't the type to roll over. And Michael, well, he was desperate enough to try anything, and desperation makes people dangerous. 2 nights later, just as the snow started falling heavy, I heard the crunch of tires in my driveway. Lights flared across my living room wall. I opened the door to see Michael standing there, soaked and frantic. "Dad, please. You don't understand. Karen's talking about leaving me. She says I'm worthless without that house. I need your help." He was shaking, his breath fogging in the cold. And in that moment, I realized the house wasn't just walls and wood to him. It was his identity, his status. Without it, he was nothing in Karen's eyes. I gripped the doorframe, my heart pounding. Here it was, the choice. Do I let him fall? Or do I give him one last rope to climb back with? The snow swirled between us, and I knew the next words out of my mouth would decide everything. Michael's words hung in the icy air, raw and desperate. I looked him in the eye and saw the boy I raised buried beneath the arrogance and greed. But underneath it all, he was finally exposed, powerless without the house he thought he owned. "I can't help you, Michael," I said softly. "You made your choices. You shut me out, treated your mother's memory like a business deal, and dismissed everything I ever did for you. Now you have to live with the consequences." He staggered back, disbelief written all over his face. You're going to let us lose it?" I nodded. "Yes, but this isn't about punishment. It's about truth. You need to see who you really are." Karen, standing a few feet behind him, shook with rage. "You'll regret this, Frank. Everyone will see you as cruel. You'll end up alone." I smiled faintly, the cold wind brushing my cheeks. "I was alone before, Karen. Now, at least, I'm free. Free from lies. Free from betrayal. Free from people who think love and respect are optional." Over the next few weeks, the consequences unfolded like dominoes. The bank began, Foreclosure proceedings after Michael failed to refinance in time. News traveled fast in Rockford. Neighbors whispered, co-workers gawked, and the local paper ran a front-page story. Whitaker family drama. Father pulls mortgage. Son faces foreclosure. Karen's social circles turned on her. PTA moms and colleagues once admiring her charm now kept their distance, quietly judging the couple for their cruelty. Michael had to leave the subdivision under hushed conversations, unable to face the same community that had once envied him. And me? I stayed in my home, my sanctuary. Linda's blue tool rack still stood in the garage, faint smells of oil and polish lingering. I cooked dinner for myself, drank my coffee on the porch, and for the first time in years, felt the steady pulse of peace. One Sunday morning, the pastor from St. Mark's dropped by. "Frank," he said, placing a hand on my shoulder, "you've shown patience and courage. Not many would do what you did and still retain their heart." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. It wasn't easy. But Linda always said, "Some battles aren't about winning. They're about being true to yourself." He smiled. "And you've honored her. And yourself." Michael eventually called from a blocked number, shame in his voice. "Dad, I get it now. I was wrong. I see what I did. I'm sorry." I didn't respond immediately. I let the silence linger. Then, quietly, "Maybe one day, Michael. But right now, you have to face the man you've become before we can rebuild anything." He stayed silent, and I didn't need to hear more. The weeks passed, snow melting into spring. Life returned to a steady rhythm. I worked on the old Chevy, in the garage, fixed the leaky roof, shoveled the driveway when necessary. Neighbors waved and stopped by with coffee and small talk. The world felt warmer, kinder, and, for the first time since Linda passed, right. Michael and Karen faded from the town's landscape. Their empire crumbled, their reputation tarnished. But I didn't feel triumph in cruelty. I felt peace. I felt dignity. I felt the love and respect that only comes from being true to yourself and standing your ground. I'd lost many things over the years: youth, Linda, dreams of watching my son grow up as the man I hoped he'd be. But this house, this home, remained mine, and that was enough. Sometimes, poetic justice isn't loud. It doesn't need fireworks or celebration. Sometimes, it's the quiet, unshakable truth that finally lets you breathe. And that was my victory. Tell us your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories.